So in today's video, I jumped on a train to Newcastle, which is 300 miles away, as I had naively bidded on a car from BCA which had engine problems. The car in question is this cheap Nissan Qashqai, which I won for just £675. And even though the car looks great upon collection, unfortunately that didn't resonate through to the engine and the rear brakes, as we had some serious problems on our hands with this one. The big issue being a potential seized rear caliper, not ideal when you're 5.5 hours away from home. So let's start with showing you the exterior of this car, then we'll take for a drive, get into exactly what happened on the way back and what it's going to take to get this car prepped, the amount it's going to cost and how much we can potentially sell this car for. So let's start with showing you the exterior of this car and then let's get on with the rest of the video. So condition wise of this car, it is actually pretty nice. There are a few little things which I'll point out on the car, but overall it's not actually a bad example of a cheap Qashqai. Now, one of the reasons why I wanted to buy this car was the colour. You don't see a white Qashqai, especially in this sort of age bracket, 2010. You normally get all the blacks and the greys and that sort of burnty red orange colour. White looked pretty nice, but just looking around the back as well, you can see we've got a couple little dinks on the boot over here. So we've got a bit of a dent over there, some cracking as well going on the bumper. So it's obviously the same impact, and you can see they put a bit of touch-up paint on that bumper. There's also just a little crease on this part of the boot, but it isn't too bad. When you take a step back, it doesn't stand out like a sore thumb. Moving down the rest of the car, and you can see where the rear quarter meets the bumper, we've got a little bit of a scuff and a scratch, but again, nothing too out of the ordinary for something on this age. The rest of the car actually does look pretty good. All the wheels and tyres are in pretty good condition. No major curb markings on any of those wheels from what I can see. So on first impressions, from what I can see, it's not a bad looking Nissan Qashqai, especially for the money, which we are going to get into later when we take this one for a drive. This was a super cheap car. It has got some issues, so let's show you the interior, then let's go for a drive and talk about exactly what those problems are. So, having a first glance on the interior, it isn't bad, but it could be a lot better. It's definitely dirty. There are some grimy parts with a bit of maybe, I don't know, moldy things, but it does need a good clean, especially on the plastics. You can see there is a lot of fading going on, so we need to put some back to black on that. And the carpets will need a good clean and a good scrub. And the seats as well, they aren't too bad, but they have got some, stainage, especially you can see over there on that passenger seat, we've got quite a bit of stainage going on over there. So something the valeters can sort out on this car. Like I said, it isn't the worst, but it definitely could be improved. Little things you can see around here, such as in the cup holders and around here, I don't know what on earth that is, but it doesn't look very pleasant. Even around the gearbox, you can see it is dirty, it needs a good clean, but it isn't something which is out of the ordinary for a typical family car at this age with this sort of mileage, but it's workable. It's dirty, but it's definitely workable, so we can get this improved and bring it up to a better standard. Let me show you the rear. Now, what have we got in here? We've got a couple of leaves and stuff. Don't really know how they've got in here, but you can see the same sort of thing is going on with the rears. The seats could do with a good scrub. The carpets surprisingly are very, very clean. I think we've got some mats in the boot, so they're probably being used around here, but not so much on the front driver's side, as that carpet had seen better days. But you get an idea of how this interior is looking. It's a family car, it's a used car, 14 years old with over 100,000 miles, so the condition is as expected. But that gives you a nice view of the interior and the exterior. So let's jump in the car, get it started and talk about what on earth happened on the way back from Newcastle, because it did get a little bit chaotic. So let's jump in the car. Just before we drive up, I want to just show you something with the engine, because that is potentially one of the issues we have. So I'm going to open the bonnet, show you what's going on, and you guys tell me what you think could be a problem with this car. So the car engine is running. I don't know how much of the mic is going to pick this up, but it is not sounding from what I would expect a 1.6 petrol engine from Nissan to sound like. So comment down below, guys, let me know what you think this problem could be. I am going to obviously head down to the mechanics and let them investigate what this can be. It drives fine, but it does sound a little bit, you can hear it, but let me know what you guys think that could be. So what on earth happened on the way back with this car? I ran into problems within 5 minutes of leaving the site. Well, actually, tell a lie, I knew there could be an issue as soon as I started the car, but that's a separate issue. But the first real issue that I got concerned about was 5 minutes into the journey, when the car started just making loud thuds. It was literally like dum, 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 dum. The faster you drive, the faster it was getting. And I had a little inkling of what it could be. As I pulled up to the junction when I was leaving the car auction and the car came to a stop, it sort of just went like that. And when this happened, all I could think is that the caliper is sticking badly. The car was undrivable. It was shaking so violently, and I was 5.5 hours away from home, predominantly on motorway, so I could not drive the car back if it was doing that. It's not possible. It would be dangerous. The brakes would be so hot. The car would just be undrivable. So I pulled over and I went outside to check, is the brake caliper sticking? Because a telltale sign is you'll put your hand by the wheel, and if it's really hot, you'll know that the caliper is sticking, because obviously the friction will make heat, so you'll know. And the rear passenger side wheel was so hot. And at this time, it's about 5 o'clock. So mechanics' garages will be closing or closed, and it's unlikely I'm going to be able to get a new caliper changed that day. I'm 5.5 hours away from home, so recovery also is an issue. So what did I do? I thought the only thing to try and do is see if there's a temporary fix. So I just drove a little bit and I was yanking the handbrake up every now and then just to see if it will just help unstick the caliper. It wasn't doing that. When I would lift up the handbrake, the knocking would stop, but as soon as I put the handbrake down, it would start again. So that wasn't working. Now the only thing left to do was just keep driving, just see if it fixes itself, which normally isn't going to fix it. If the caliper is sticking, normally it's bad news. So I carried on driving for a few minutes, got onto a dual carriageway, got up to some speed, and the noise was getting quieter and quieter and quieter to the point where it went away. And I thought, right, do not touch this handbrake, be very, very gentle with braking, and just get this car back home. And long story short, I did get the car back home okay. But as I got near home, I thought, let me just check out the handbrake, see if it's okay, see if there's been any improvement. So I parked up, put the handbrake up, put it back down, pulled away, the issue started again. So I knew that this is a problem which has to be fixed. It's not a one-off, it is something which has to be fixed. But the main thing is the car made it back home. Now, I mentioned there was another issue which I was aware of. When I was bidding on this car, it had an essential check report, and it said for engine running, it was in amber, and in the notes, it said engine tapping. Now, I thought, because of the price of this car, I'll take a bit of a chance on it. It is a bit silly in doing so because the car was so far away and, you know, they've mentioned it's got a problem. But like I had with the TTS, it said the same thing and that car had no problems whatsoever. But in this case, this car does have some sort of engine related noise. I don't know exactly what it could be, whether it's internal or if it's some sort of bearing that's making the noise. We're going to find out once we take it to the mechanics. But when I did start this car, I knew straight away there is some sort of issue. And I was thinking, did I do the right thing buying this car? And, you know, especially on the fact that it's so far away from home. And, you know, yeah, I could have got it delivered, but the cost implication of getting this car delivered from Newcastle is ridiculous. I think it's like £500 or £600. And that's a massive part of your profit margin. So I'd rather just jump on the train and try and bring the car back. You're saving that money. It's a day's work for that amount of money. It's not too bad. Now, price-wise, if I haven't already told you already, I paid £675, I believe. That is just the hammer price. Obviously, there are some fees on top, which I'll pop on the screen now to let you know the total cost. But even still, for a Nissan Qashqai 1.6 petrol, 60 reg with 121,000 miles, and I think it's a two-owner car, that is a pretty good price and enough for me to take a chance on with any repairs on this one. And to top it off, this car was just MOT'd about a week or two ago and had some repairs done. I think the exhaust was blowing, and that was repaired to get it through an MOT. As well as that, it came through Inchcape, so it means that this car would have been part exchanged at a dealer. So I thought, car's been MOT'd recently, it's been part exchanged, so someone's just buying a newer car, upgrading it. How bad could this car be if someone has recently MOT'd it and spent money on getting the exhaust fixed to pass the MOT? I just thought it can't be that bad. It drives absolutely fine. The fact that it was put through an MOT and money was spent on it means that the car's probably been running fine for a long time. The rear caliper, I'm surprised it didn't get picked up on an MOT if it was sticking, but equally, it is an older car. The car could have been sat around at the dealership or the auction for about 2 weeks. If the handbrake was uptight and the car's not been moving, it could lead to, you know, a caliper being a bit sticky. So that's the issue with this car. We're going to get those things rectified. We're heading down to the mechanics now to get the car checked over and get those issues repaired. Once that's done, we'll have a catch up, then we'll drop this to the valeters, get it all tidied up, and then we'll end the video by showing you how this car is in its final form, ready for sale, and we'll get into exactly how much everything costs to get this car ready for sale and what sort of margins are we going to make on this car. So let's head down to the mechanics now and get started with getting some profit made on this Qashqai. So we've picked up the car now from the mechanics and have diagnosed and rectified those issues with this car. So I'll get into all of the costs right at the end of the video once we've got it validated and we know the full cost of where we stand and how much we can sell this car for. So I will get into all those costs, but as it stands from the mechanic, the two issues which we had, which was the engine bay not sounding very healthy at all, and then the other issue was the rear caliper was binding, sticking, causing a bit of havoc, and it needed attention urgently. So those were the two issues we had to address. Thankfully, I can say both of those have now been rectified. The car drives beautiful. The rear brake is not sticking at all. So we've had some work done to that rear caliper. And in the engine bay, we've now put in a new water pump. So what I'll quickly do is I'll jump out, show you the engine bay, and I'll show you the difference of how it's sounding now to what it is before, because it is night and day. I was a little bit concerned, but let me just jump out and show you exactly how this engine bay sounds now. So let's hop out now. And listen to that now, the engine is sounding fantastic. I was a bit concerned when I did pick up the car, especially on that long drive back, but it just turned out to be a water pump which needed replacing. So lucky for me, good use of the car, it is not catastrophic. New water pump on the car, no internal damage or any weird sounds coming from the internals of the engine, so that's a massive positive, big relief. But what I am still going to do, which I normally don't, is give this engine bay a clean. Normally, what I do say to customers when they are buying cheap used cars is if the engine bay is clean, it probably is hiding something. But in this case, it's quite a nice car, a 2010 Qashqai. I don't think this engine bay is doing itself any favors. It is very dirty, very dusty, and you can really see this has probably never ever seen any sort of clean in its life. So when I get this dropped off to the valeters, I will tell them, give this a clean, just a gentle one, because we don't want to cause any damage to this engine. So if you do ever jet wash an engine, make sure you do it with some care. But that's the engine bay. Let's jump in the car now and talk about what's left to do on this cheap Nissan Qashqai. So all that's left to do now to the Qashqai is drop it off to the valeters, get them to work their magic on the bodywork, get the interior deeply clean, get the engine bay clean, so we can present this car in the best way possible. So let's get heading down there, get it dropped off, and then I'm going to catch up with you guys once the car is completely ready for retail, and we'll go into exactly how much this whole cheap Qashqai cost me, buying it, getting it prepped, traveling up to Newcastle, all of those costs, and talk about the margin involved in this lovely car. So let's head down to the car wash now, and I'll catch up with you guys shortly. Now, I'll be honest, I priced this car very competitive due to the market not thriving at the moment, but this meant I sold this car fast before I was able to film the rest of the footage. But I'm still going to run through the cost and profit on this one, and you can see from the photos after the valet how the car was looking. As you know, I paid £675 for the bid. Fees involved were £272.96. That meant the total cost was £947.96, getting the car from the auction. Now, as always, there are additional costs such as travel and prep, so let me run you through those. The train, £52.80. Fuel to get back was £30. Now, the repairs that were needed to the car, so the water pump was £66. The coolant needed changing, that was £24. Rear pads fitting kit was £10.80. And the labour involved in doing this was £108. The valet and the engine bay was £50 to get that all cleaned, and getting the car advertised was £25. So the total spent on preparation and travel for this car was £366.60. Adding this to the cost of the car meant that the total cost ready for sale with this Nissan Qashqai is £1,314.56. But how much did I sell the car for? Well, as I said, the market isn't booming, so I priced it low to get it sold fast. And the price for this was £1,895. So this means I made a pre-tax small profit of £580.44. For the time and work involved, it's not bad, nor is it amazing. However, considering this is before the elections, slightly uncertain times, a profit is still a profit. And on that note, guys, I'm going to end today's video here. Thank you so much again for watching. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. And I'm going to see you next Sunday at 6 PM. Take care, guys.